I find that you can be perfectionistic whether or not you are type A or type B. I know that type A gets a bad rap for this. They kind of display what we typically think of perfectionism on a regular and maybe more outward basis. But I think that a lot of the things that hold type Bs back, the things that cause us to not pursue things, to prefer that easy, go with the flow approach, is because of perfectionistic tendencies. Are you the type of person who has a million ideas, 1,000 different ways that you feel like you could be creative, all of these different pathways branching out in your mind, 1,000 directions that you feel like you could go? And because of that, you struggle with settling on one. And if you do settle on one, you struggle with carrying it out, carrying it to completion, doing the thing. If that's you, then we are very alike. That has 100% been the experience that I have had over the past 15-ish years of my life. Ever since I was around 20 years old, and I thought, hey, that's a wonderful idea. Let me pursue that. Did it for about a week, maybe 2 if I was lucky, and then fell off the wagon. In so many ways, I feel like I have pursued or wanted to pursue creative endeavors, side hustles, different dreams that I have had in my mind for so long, and I have never managed to do them for any length of time to see if I actually want to continue doing them, to see if they would actually be successful, to actually hone a skill. And at the same time, I have so many dreams and ideas, and it can feel really overwhelming. And I don't know, I can feel a lot of pressure about, am I choosing the right one? Is this the thing that I'm supposed to be pursuing right now? It can get really confusing and disheartening and hard. And I would say until about 6 months ago, I have never started a thing, a creative endeavor, a passionate side hustle, and done it for an extended period of time. Enter this YouTube channel. I started this YouTube channel in January of this year, 2024. I guess technically I started the channel when I uploaded a school project to it many, many moons ago. But I started uploading on a regular basis about 6 months ago. Actually, now that you think about it, it's the end of July. So this was 7 months ago. So far, I have uploaded 33 videos, which amounts to about a video a week, sometimes more, sometimes less. But I've been consistent. And that really got me thinking, what has been different about this creative endeavor? What has been different about this little side hustle, passion project that I've been doing than all of the other ones that came before? And I think that the key is my laid-back approach. Just for a little bit of context, I am very type B. There's not a type A bone in my body. So naturally, what comes out of me, my preferred way of being in the world, is a little bit more go with the flow, a little bit more adapting to things as they come versus approaching things with a very ordered or organized mindset. And that is not to say that I am not perfectionistic. I find that you can be perfectionistic whether or not you are type A or type B. I know that type A gets a bad rap for this. They kind of display what we typically think of perfectionism on a regular and maybe more outward basis. But I think that a lot of the things that hold type Bs back, the things that cause us to not pursue things, to prefer that easy, go with the flow approach, is because of perfectionistic tendencies. So I can only speak for myself with this, but I know for me, a lot of the starting and stopping that I've experienced over the past 15 years, a lot of the holding myself back from showing up, not putting myself out there, just laying back and letting things come as they may. Some of that is my personality, yes, but some of that is also as a result of fear, a fear of not being perfect, a fear of not doing something exactly right, or of not getting it right the first time. You can be laid back as a perfectionist, and your laid backness can come from that perfectionism just as easily as someone can pursue order and organization and control as a result of being a perfectionist. Perfectionism and laid backness are not mutually exclusive. You can definitely be both at the same time, and one can certainly motivate the other. And the thing about it is, at least in my experience, for me personally, I found that it was very easy to hide behind that personality trait, that desire to be easygoing, that type B nature. It was easy to act like I didn't care. But the reality was I cared a lot. I cared so much about the work that I wanted to put out into the world. I cared so much about being creative that I was paralyzed. I became paralyzed as a result of the pressure that I was putting on myself. Unable to move, frozen, starting something, doing it for a week, and then just getting totally buried under the pressure and expectation that I had heaped upon myself as a result of wanting to be perfect. So I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I have come up with 6 different things that I have done differently this time that I feel like have made the difference, that have allowed me to really dive into this creative work, to this YouTube channel, and maintain it consistently for the past 7 months without getting burnt out, without heaping too much pressure on myself. So this is my laid back approach to a creative side hustle. Okay, the first thing that I do is that I do not create what I think will do well. I create what I want to create. For me specifically, in the world of YouTube, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about what videos I think people will want to watch or what will draw a lot of followers. Instead, I just create what I am inspired to create and the videos that I would want to click on as a viewer. So almost across the board, when I'm getting ready to film, I look at my list of ideas and I just choose the video that I'm most excited about. Not what I think will make people click and subscribe and watch for a long time. And I do this for 2 reasons. First of all, because I want people to click and subscribe and watch for a long time. And I know for me, for the content creators that I follow, they are people who enjoy what they're doing. Now, of course, there are going to be exceptions to this, and there are probably some people who I watch who are very good actors, and I would never know that they're hating what they're doing. There are exceptions to every rule. But I think across the board, you can tell if someone is enjoying what they're doing or not. You can tell when they lose that spark. You can tell when they're making a video kind of begrudgingly, and it's less enjoyable to watch. So in my mind, the quickest route for me to create content that I think people will love is not to create content because it's something that I think people will love, but because it is something that I love. I want to create something that I love, that I'm excited about, and that is authentic to me. Because I think when you do that, when each of us does the thing that comes most naturally to us, when we follow the path of least resistance, creatively speaking, that is when we film a video worth watching, or write a book worth reading, or paint a picture worth framing. There is nothing more fascinating and compelling than seeing someone operate in their element, doing what they were meant to do. This applies across the board, not just in the arts, but any sort of work that you could want to pursue in this world. The people who are most compelling are the ones who have found that fit. They've clicked into some sort of gear that is theirs and theirs alone. And you can tell that they're passionate. You can tell that they're in this cycle that is self-sustaining in a way because it is somehow what they were made for. So one small way that I try to do that is to film what I want to instead of what I think I should. And the second reason that I do that is because I want to film not just one video, but hundreds. So at this stage, I am fiercely vigilant about protecting the sustainability of this creative endeavor. Because I do not have a history of maintaining a creative practice of any kind, of doing a side hustle and sticking with it for years, I am very aware that this thing that I'm doing is fragile. It's new, and at the beginning, I've only been doing it for 7 months, and I almost picture it like a tiny little plant, that's just newly in the ground. And the elements, the environment that are around it really, really matter now more than ever. It's possible that if my channel really, really grows and I establish that discipline and that passion of creating videos in a really consistent way, I could probably afford to film a video or 2 that are not the exact thing that I want to be filming right now. I can use a little bit of restraint. I can say no to myself, and it's not going to make the whole thing crumble apart. The plant won't die if I do that. But I am painfully aware at this stage of life, as a mother to 3 tiny humans, trying to keep them alive, trying to maintain a house to even just like a mediocre standard, while also trying to fit in time where I can work out and read a book and just sit and stare into the void. If I want to do all of those things and also have a creative pursuit on the side that I consistently maintain for a long time, then I cannot afford to create a video that I feel meh about. That is gonna burn me out like that. So instead, I try to make videos that I want to make because I want to be making videos for a long time. Okay, the next aspect of my laid-back approach is letting the inspiration come to me. This one is really simple, and it's possibly something that other creatives would disagree with. I'm not really sure, but it is something that has worked really well for me in helping me to maintain the livelihood of this creative thing that I'm pursuing. Personally, I do not set aside special times in order to brainstorm YouTube videos or try to get inspired about what I want to create on the channel. The main thing that I do, and it's very small, but it's if I have an idea, I write it down right away. I don't try to analyze whether it's a good idea. Most of the time, I don't do any sort of hashing out with it. I just write it down immediately. And at this point, I have a pretty long list of videos going using that method. Anytime I want to film, I can just go to that list and pick something off of it. And honestly, I probably have more video ideas than I have time to make videos, which is a great place to be in. I don't need inspiration to strike at a particular time in a particular moment because I've already taken advantage of that moment in the past when it struck. So that's a really simple one, writing down the video ideas when they come to my mind. Other times it's a lot more involved. Sometimes I'll have an idea, but it won't just stop there. My brain will keep going and going. And instead of pushing it aside or like waiting to a time when it's convenient, like, oh, but this is not my YouTube time. This is not my time for brainstorming. I stop whatever I'm doing and I immediately go to the note on my phone and I write out whatever it is that I'm thinking. Again, I try not to edit here. That's really, really important, I think, to the process. This is just a brain dump situation. I don't snuff anything out. I don't cut it off. I just get it out. Because again, I'm interested in what is most sustainable for me creatively. I am in this for the long haul. I am interested in the long game. So that includes for me, whenever I can, taking the path of least resistance, creatively speaking. So for instance, last night I got the idea for this video in the shower, and it wasn't just a simple video idea. I started kind of getting the script for it in my head. All of these points were just coming out, one after the other after the other. I got out of the shower right away. I had planned to read my book. I had planned to sit and relax for 30 minutes before bed, but that didn't happen. Instead, I wrote out the script for this video, and it was easy work. It was easy work. And whenever that happens, I encourage you to take advantage of it. Let the inspiration come to you, and when it does, don't push it off. Don't wait for another time that you have set aside to be creative. Take advantage whenever you can in the moment to at least write down general notes. I know there are extenuating circumstances here. You might be in a meeting at work or with a client or something. You can't just be like, hold on a sec. I'm just writing. Just, hop, yeah. The muse is speaking. Yeah. You would lose that client pretty fast, I'm betting. So I get it. There are obviously circumstances where it's not appropriate to do this, but even just keeping a single sentence in your mind so it doesn't escape, I find that that is really helpful. Whatever the first aspect of the idea was, just hold that sentence in your mind. And then hopefully when you do have time to sit down with your note, you can write down that first sentence and maybe the avalanche will come from that sentence, Lord willing. Whatever the circumstance may be, when inspiration comes, try as best you can to wring every little bit of goodness out of it. Okay, so you might be wondering, what about when you don't feel motivated? What do I do when I don't feel motivated, when I feel overwhelmed by the whole thing? Because believe me, it has happened. In the past 6 months and in my life as a whole, I have often felt unmotivated, uninspired, and overwhelmed by the idea of going after a certain creative pursuit. So the thing that I've done this time around that I feel like has made the world of difference is to just put one foot in front of the other. When I feel unmotivated, but still some part of me wants to continue to create, I just put one foot in front of the other. And honestly, this applies to any pursuit, any endeavor, any large-scale project that you're trying to pursue. I think sometimes when we think about those large scale things, it might be something like filming a video or writing a book or climbing Mount Everest, running a marathon, anything that is going to take time and preparations and multiple steps to get there. I think sometimes when we consider those things, we can become overwhelmed because we start to think of the entirety of the thing. We're thinking of the thing as a whole. Take, for example, like parenthood. Pretty wonderful, also incredibly hard at times. Perhaps the most precious and tender experience of my life, also incredibly overwhelming and disheartening. And I know for me, when I was thinking about the idea of stepping into parenthood, I was like, better not. It just seemed like a bit much, it seemed like a lot. And this is not a complete lie. This is not a complete untruth, but it is not entirely true either. I think part of the problem is that I was looking at parenthood in these like really broad strokes and these things that people say about it, like the terrible twos and sibling rivalry and puberty. And I'm like, am I cut out for this? Can I really do that? That whole thing? But the reality is you don't experience all of that at once. Your kid is 1, and then they're 2, and then they're 3, and so on and so forth. Parenthood is one day at a time. It's a moment by moment experience, and you only ever have to tackle the next moment. You only ever have to engage with what's in front of you. And so I think that the same can happen when we think of a creative endeavor, a passion pursuit. If you think about writing a book, you might think, am I cut out for that? But what if you thought instead about writing a sentence? I mean, isn't a book just one sentence after another, strung end to end? I mean, really, that is it in its most simplest form. If you can write a sentence, you can write a book. So whatever your endeavor is right now, whatever the thing is that you're trying to pursue, maybe it's creative, maybe it's not, but try to break it into its component parts, especially in moments on days when you are feeling unmotivated. Because taking an unmotivated mind, taking someone who's already feeling overwhelmed and saying, you need to film a whole YouTube video. And not only do you need to film it, you need to edit it. It's gonna take you probably 20 to 40 hours. So yeah, go ahead and take that on, tired person. Go ahead. You're like, better not. I better not. I'm not cut out for that. But instead, if you break it into its component parts, for me, for instance, if I'm feeling unmotivated, overwhelmed, then I'll just do the little thing. I'll just do the next step. Clear the dining room table. Sit down at the dining room table with my iPad. Open up my film editing software. Transfer the footage into it. I don't typically do this, but if you wanted to, you could write down these steps and say, I'm gonna do the first 3 things. I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna open the software, and I'm gonna transfer the footage. Maybe at that point you'll be like, yep, that's enough for today. I'm gonna go lay on the couch. Or you might find that an object in motion stays in motion, and you'll find in you just that little bit of extra gumption to do the next 1, 2, 3 things on the list. Just put one foot in front of the other. Don't concern yourself with the project as a whole. Don't concern yourself with step 15 or 16 or 17 if you really hate those steps. Don't worry about it. You'll cross those bridges when you come to them. Just put one foot in front of the other, and you will be surprised how far you can walk that way. I know it sounds simple, but that's kind of the point. You're trying to trick your brain into completing an entire task by breaking it down into tiny, achievable steps. Okay, the next thing that I do in my laid back approach is I don't edit in the flow. Now, this is something I kind of mentioned in the other things that I was talking about, but when I am in the flow of a thing, when I'm doing a particular thing that is required for me to do in my creative pursuit, I just try and do that one thing. And this is particularly true when it comes to that inspiration time, that time when I'm just brain dumping, writing down this idea, writing out notes, writing out a script. For me, that is not the time to also be editing that script or placing judgments on those ideas, trying to determine whether they're good, trying to determine whether they deserve to be on the list. All of that can happen later. It's very, very important, I think, if you want to be sustainable in your creative practice, to just do one job at a time, to just take on the thing that you have in front of you and not get swept up in everything else that you have to do. And actually, now that I think about it, this really connects with the previous step of what to do when you're feeling unmotivated. It's all kind of the same thing, but one way to not get burnt out is to not place value judgments on your work while you're doing it. Make sure that you let editing, and this is not just video editing, but any sort of editing that you do, be a separate thing. It is a completely different thing that happens at a separate time. Do your work completely. Write your draft, film your video, write down your ideas. I can't think of other examples, but whatever that looks like in your creative pursuit, do your work and edit it later as a separate and distinct step in the creative process. And the reason that I think this is so important, especially for like my type B brothers and sisters out there, or actually really anyone who struggles with perfectionism, because it allows that perfectionistic voice a gateway into your work. It's like planting a little baby plant and then allowing the burning bright afternoon sun to shine on it. it's not ready. It can't sustain that. It's going to wither away. It's not going to be helpful for that little baby plant to receive that kind of criticism before it even has legs. Wow, there are a lot of analogies. Ooh. I love an analogy, but there's a lot going on here. Anyways, the point is trying to edit as you go, trying to edit when you're in that first stage of just getting stuff out of your brain and onto paper or out into the world can do more harm than good, especially if you struggle with perfectionism. Allowing judgment to enter in too early, at least for me in my experience, has a quashing effect. Is that a real word? Quashing? Squashing? It has a squashing effect. It tells you you're not good before you've done anything yet. For me, I have found that doing a sustainable creative work, putting something out in the world, requires that I first create a space where it is safe to come out. Whatever that looks like, realizing that the editing will take place at a different time. Right now, I'm just filming. I don't need to say things perfectly. I find that you can be perfectionistic. I find that you can be perfectionists. I find that you can be perfectionists. What a word to make mistakes on, huh? I can edit it later, and that is a separate thing that I'm going to do. This is a perfectionism-free zone. I don't want perfection here. I would much rather have a free flow, an unbridled expression, than lose the opportunity to have everything come out and be heard. Don't edit in the flow. Another thing that I have done that I feel like has made a big difference in this creative pursuit compared to the others is that I have set the precedent that I'm going to be learning as I go. I think a lot of the time in the past when I had pursued creative things, when I had sat down to become a better writer or write a book even, there was always this overarching sense that I needed to be good at it already in order to do it in the first place. And more often than not, this was completely subconscious. This wasn't a thing that I was thinking overtly when I was sitting down to create, but it was there. It was there in the back of my mind. This idea that I needed to do it perfectly the first time. I already needed to know how to do the thing that I was setting out to do. And the fact that I didn't, because newsflash, nobody knows how to do the thing before they've done it. Nobody. Some people are maybe slightly better at it when they start, but generally across the board, everyone has to learn at some point. And so whether you are learning at 20 or 30 or 50 or 70, it doesn't matter. You're just going through a process that everyone had to go through in order to learn that thing. You're not behind. You're not behind just because a 20-year-old knows something that you don't. They just went through that process of learning. They also had to look a bit silly. They also had to look a bit idiotic, and that is okay. It's okay to learn as you go. And I know for me personally, with having that perfectionistic mindset, that idea that I couldn't learn as I went, the idea that I had to know everything already, really thwarted my efforts. I started things with a lot of gumption and excitement and vim and vigor, but 2, 3, 4 weeks in, when I started to have to learn stuff, I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe this isn't for me. When in reality, all I was coming up against was the natural process of learning, which has resistance in it. Again, there is a bit of looking silly that must take place. But if you are comfortable with that, if you are allowing of that, you will get so much farther than if you have no tolerance for it at all. If you have no tolerance for looking silly, and I'm speaking to myself, if you have no tolerance for making mistakes, then you're never going to do anything because it's a prerequisite to learning. We can't only ever do things that we're perfect at. That's going to make our bubble of things that we do very, very, very small. I think many personality types want to feel competent before they do a thing. And most of the time, that's just not how it works. That's going to limit you horribly, especially in the realm of creative pursuits. So to bring it back around to this YouTube channel, prior to 7 months ago, I had never edited a video. I didn't have any idea what I was doing. And you guys can go back. I've left all of my videos up, and I think I plan to. Generally, I feel like it's nice to be able to see where a creator came from and how they learned along the way, but you guys can see the quality of my video from the very beginning, the way that the lighting was, and it's not like it's that great now, but I've only been doing this for 7 months, and all that I set out to do when I made my first video was I want to learn something every video that I make. And of course, there are limitations with equipment and stuff like that. There's only so much you can do before you're able to invest monetarily, but that's fine because I am okay. I set out with the idea that I was okay with looking a little silly, making mistakes, and learning as I go. And that I feel like has made all the difference in maintaining this creative work. And last but not least, within my laid-back approach, I developed a North Star. Now, this might not apply to everyone out there, at least not exactly how I'm going to lay it out right now, but I only have my experience and my context, and hopefully you can take the concept and apply it to whatever it is that you're doing. I got this wording, North Star, from another YouTuber, Caroline Winkler. She makes a lot of interior design content and other wonderful human content as well. I highly recommend her if you've never watched her videos before, but she made a video recently about how to find your interior design style, and she used this concept of a North Star, choosing either a single word or maybe a single piece of furniture and using that as your point of direction to kind of have everything refer back to and evolve around. And I think that this is really helpful as a concept, and it's something that I've been doing all along, but I've just applied this verbiage to it because I think it's a helpful picture. When I set out to make YouTube videos and make a channel, I didn't think a ton about what I was doing for the first couple of videos in terms of a broader sweep. Like, I didn't ask myself the questions, what do you want from your YouTube channel, and who do you want to be, and what is the niche that you want to settle into right now? Because I didn't think that that would be helpful. I had so much fear and paralysis, as I've spoken about already, so all I needed to do was just put out a video and then put out another video and not think about it too much and not try to be perfect with it. But as things have moved along and I've created videos every single week, I have started to do some thinking about, okay, what do I want my channel to be? What do I want my videos to offer? A lot of my videos so far have been about style and beauty and how to think about those things critically and how to maybe take the pressure off a little bit within those contexts that kind of can feel a bit pressureful. Is that a word? So I'm making a lot of beauty and style content. I love what I've been creating so far. I want to continue making that kind of content, but I also want the option to expand out, and I don't want to limit myself too soon or cut myself off from ways that I could grow or be here on this channel. So in my thinking about it, I realized that there was this through line in all of the videos that I had created so far, a North Star, if you will, and that is the idea of taking a laid back approach to things. The idea of taking the pressure off a little bit. There's a lot of things that we experience as women, and for those of you who are mothers, as mothers, that just feel very high stakes. And I know that the vast majority of the people watching my channel are women, which is why I narrow it down that way. If you're watching this and you're not a woman, hi Dad. Hopefully you can glean something from this as well. But generally, across the board, as a woman, as a mother, the human experience, it can feel like a lot of things are very high stakes. We can tend to put so much pressure on what we wear and how we look and how we keep our house and how we parent and what food are we going to eat and how are we going to do this creative endeavor. And so I realized that the thing that I wanted to do, the connecting point of whatever I create here, I want it to all speak back to that North Star, which is giving myself permission to take the pressure off, and in so doing, giving you permission to take the pressure off and just take a more laid back approach to life. So once I hit on that, once I had that realization, that really is the connecting point of everything I've created so far, and that really is a large component of what I want to say on here. Whatever I'm talking about, whatever I'm making a video about, I want to make sure that the viewer, you, are coming away at the end of it feeling more peaceful and relaxed within yourself, that you really know that there's no pressure. You are loved already and the pressure's off. That's what I want my viewers to take away. That is my North Star. So developing that over time, writing that down, realizing that that North Star exists has really helped me in the decision-making process of what videos I want to make and determining whether or not I want to make a new type of video. In lots of ways, this video is very different from what I've done on my channel so far, but it connects and relates back to the North Star. And that has given me a lot of clarity within this creative work. And hopefully the same can be true for you. Develop a North Star, a center point, something that is core to who it is, what you are doing, what you want to say. And it's okay if it's not perfect. It's okay if it evolves over time. I'm not saying that this is always going to be the North Star of my videos. It very well could change, and I'm open to that. But for now, that North Star provides a very simple filter, which helps me kind of funnel the work that I'm doing and just simplifies things overall. And I find that anything that simplifies the process of creativity, anything that simplifies the decisions that I have to make, adds a level of sustainability to this work that I'm pursuing. I do this motion, and the picture that I got is like building a sandcastle at the beach. Anything that makes your work simpler is like that nice, heavy, wet sand that you're like putting at the base of that sandcastle. You're establishing the foundation. You're bolstering it. You are ensuring with each clod of sand that you add to it that it is not going to be knocked down when the waves come, because the waves will come. And hopefully what we're creating is slightly more stable than a sandcastle. But for the sake of the analogy, the waves will come. And the more that you can simplify, the more that you can remove perfectionism, learn as you go, let yourself look a little silly, make some mistakes along the way, the more that you can do that, the more you can take a laid back approach to this creative thing that you're doing, the longer it will last and the stronger it will be. So that is everything on my list. This is something that I plan to continue, maybe like a little bit of a series on the channel, my laid back approach too. So if you guys have anything that you're interested in, anything that you want me to make a video on in relation to having a laid back approach to it, please comment down below and share that with me. So far, some of the ideas that I'm playing around with are a laid back approach to homeschool, a laid back approach to food / health / eating / our bodies. That will probably be several different videos. But yeah, I am open to suggestions. So if you have them, drop them below. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Go out and be laid back, my friend. Pressure's off. I love you. Have I told you lately that I love you? You see my eyebrows? Let me do it again. Ooh, yes. Guys, if you're Gen Z, tell me, is this how you want me to be? Is this what you want from me? You want me to have middle part. You're telling me this is what I have to do to be cool. Have I told you lately that I love you? Have I told you there's no one else above you? Fill my heart with gladness, you take away all my sadness. Ease my troubles, that's what you do. At the end of the day, I give thanks and pray to the one. That's good. It's good. Good.